there are efforts to get some of the dirtiest older vehicles out of the fleet in the state.
Right.
But we're in a state where rust is not an issue, cars last forever. And if one drives around Los Angeles, the astounding number of 70s era classics that are putting out incredible amounts of every bad thing that can come out of a car. I know that there are state programs for low-income drivers who maybe cannot afford to get into an EV, but they can certainly move up to something better.
Yeah.
But is there working in conjunction with the ZEV push to really step up efforts to get some of the really bad vehicles off the roads, especially in Southern California?
We haven't linked them. It has been very much, let's deal with the most polluting cars and offer incentives to get those off the road, buyback programs, scrap programs, things of that nature. And then separately, we're pushing improvement to the new car fleet. There have been suggestions that we try and link the two, but we haven't figured out how to do it. And if there are any suggestions, I'm open to hearing them.
I'm sure there's an auto company around here somewhere. I'm sure they'd be big fans of helping people get into it.
Well, oftentimes, though, if you're taking the dirtiest car off the road and you give somebody a few $1,000s to do that, or even a few $100s to do that, they don't run out and buy a new car. They run out and buy a used car, which is better. That's often how the market works. It's great that the newer car that they buy is cleaner. That might be a 5-year-old car, and that was subject to our more recent low-emission vehicle regulations. They might even be getting into a used hybrid of some kind. But oftentimes, that person who is in a low-income situation and takes advantage of that incentive is not walking into a dealership to buy a new car, unless we made a very significant change to the incentive structure for new cars and advanced technology cars.
Yes, Costa, referring to your comment about the gasoline taxes or the fuel taxes, looking at the Transportation Energy book published by, I think it's Oak Ridge National Labs, not only has it not kept track with inflation, but it's also the lowest in the world by a significant amount. And then I look at the federal transportation bill that was just passed and is now law, and it involves some significant changes in terms of it's now a 2-year law rather than a 6-year law, and it looks like the federal government wants to get out of the transportation business and push all the responsibility into the states. Now, you think the states would be more likely to be able to raise taxes and get the extra money they need?
Someone well, I think it's going to be difficult either way, but these are issues that I guess taxpayers can see at a local level. They understand the condition of their roadways and their bridges, and I think if there could be a case to be made at the local level that would potentially make this work. I mean, no matter what, I mean, I'll leave the political discussions aside and just focus on the technical in that we have to do something. So doing nothing is not going to help because there's the conditions of the transportation infrastructure in this country are such that drastic new investment is required, and whether that revenue is coming from a gasoline tax or a mileage-based user fee or some sort of advanced tolling or registration, there will need to be a way for the users of the system to contribute in not just to its capital expansion, but a state of good repair.
We're recognizing that in California as well, as we adopted the zero-emission vehicle regulation and the LEV, changes to the LEV regulation. We did a cost analysis on the revenue analysis to the state of California, and it was significant. And our Department of Finance said, excuse me, what the heck? We're forecasting this dramatic loss in revenue from gasoline tax and just collected in California. And we said, well, that's whether California made these changes or not, at the federal level, this is now a national program, and this is a heads up. We need to be looking at how we collect road tax. There's no easy answers. We know it's going to be challenging. As part of the governor's executive order, that's been outlined as one of the action items to take a look at feasible and appropriate ways of collecting revenue in order to support our roads and infrastructure.
That kind of leaves an innovation question open, is should we charge ZEVs right now per mile, on an annual per mile fee, which would even make them more expensive than they already are. So these are questions that state DOTs in California and Washington and elsewhere are really starting to think about, in that there's revenue going to be lost. It's going to be small as adoption is small, but planning for this would need to occur, and I don't think it would be that difficult from either type of fuel chain, either the electric utilities who are accustomed to collecting and distributing taxes, or the major fuel providers who would be providing hydrogen. It's just a function of when do you introduce this, and no matter when you do, there will be winners and losers.
So this, maybe the best to start with costs on this, is there was a US Congressional Budget Office study that recently came out that said basically that for all the success hybrids have had, it's had a negligible impact on greenhouse gases. And then it also said for the billions we're investing in the subsidies for EVs, it essentially concluded it wasn't worth it. So I'm wondering how that jives with the research you've done and kind of what the impact of that would be.
So it very much jives with the research that we've done in terms of the amount of the subsidy that's provided is not going to make the vehicles at cost parity, which would depress potential adoption. So you actually would need more subsidy to get these vehicles to cost parity. But it also that report talks about the cost per gallon avoided from different types of subsidies. And I think they did a very thorough analysis, and I must throw out the disclaimer that I was a peer reviewer for that study, so of course I'm going to think it's wonderful.
We have another question.
I wanted to go back to the idea of the road taxes, fuel taxes. How serious is discussion about it in the state, nationally, or how serious should it be, about shifting from the fuel to actual use? Granted, there are a number of ways of determining actual use, but if I have two vehicles that I don't pay any road taxes on. I have a natural gas Honda and a Leaf, and I thank you all for subsidizing my driving. But at some point, if we keep it in fuels, you're going to give all of the people who have purchased these alternative fuel vehicles a really nasty shock when suddenly the cost of operating them goes up significantly. And it's going to be unpleasant and have some nasty repercussions, I think, politically and economically in terms of purchasing. So is there significant thought being given to moving off of taxing the fuel and on to taxing, real road use?
I think the conversation about what the mechanism is for generating that revenue is just now beginning. And at the direction of the governor's office, under this ZEV executive order, we're just beginning to get the right parties together to talk about what the right mechanism is. But I agree that we need to send that signal right away to the marketplace. I've had the same problem with providing free electricity to battery electric users in the public market space, because it sets up a precedent and an expectation that electricity is free, and it's not. So when that changes, it's going to be a rude awakening and perhaps a disincentive to new customers. So I think we need to be sending the signals and developing what those costs are today, and if they're not put in place immediately, at least make folks aware that it's coming.
No, I'll plug once again our RAND study on mileage-based user fees that starts to look at some of these issues. And in January at the Transportation Research Board meeting in Washington, we're going to have a special workshop around issues regarding electric transportation and infrastructure funding. I'm looking forward to that.